Donald Trump's first 100 days in his second term have unleashed a storm of transformative executive actions, redefining America's role on the global stage. From aggressive trade tariffs and immigration reforms to bold economic maneuvers, his America First agenda has sparked both admiration and alarm. While supporters celebrate a decisive reshaping of international alliances, critics warn of rising inflation and strained diplomatic ties. Polls reveal a deeply divided nation, with conservatives hailing his leadership even as others voice growing unease over its impact on domestic stability. As debates rage, one thing's clear: these early moves are rewriting the rules of global order and testing the resilience of an interconnected world. Tonight we delve into the complexities and controversies surrounding Donald Trump's first 100 days of executive orders, exploring their profound impact on America and the world. I'm Henny Saif, and this is Think Tank.
It is my honor to introduce to you the President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
Certainly successful era in the history of our country. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action. Back to you. Welcome. God bless America. China, first row. I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America.
From abolishing the Department of Education to escalating global trade wars, Donald Trump's first 100 days in his second term have been marked by bold, controversial decisions, reshaping America's domestic landscape and redefining its role on the world stage. Let's analyze the chaos, ambition, and far-reaching implications.
Donald Trump's second term began with a burst of controversial decisions that reshaped domestic policies, redefined international relations, and political conflicts. From abolishing of Department of Education to escalating trade wars, his first 100 days were marked by bold actions, political brinkmanship, and global repercussions. Trump abolished the U.S. Department of Education, arguing it was a relic of federal overreach. He redirected funding towards state-controlled voucher programs for private schools. Critics argued this would exacerbate inequality, while supporters claimed it empowered local communities. In addition, after refusing to re-regulate their laws regarding institutional oversight and independence, Trump has issued an order to withhold billions of federal funding to Harvard University and revoke its tax exemptions. Trump suspended all foreign aid through USAID, citing budgetary constraints and prioritization of American interests. This decision drew criticism from beneficiaries, like countries and institutions, which had long relied on U.S. assistance. The move signaled a shift toward isolationism and strained diplomatic ties globally. Trump issued mass deportation orders, targeting both illegal immigrants and legal migrants who expressed support for Palestine or Gaza. These measures sparked outrage domestically and internationally, particularly among Arab American communities. His administration also used DOGE to enforce government layoffs, further polarizing public opinion and reducing trust within government sectors. The White House partnered with tech giants Microsoft and Nvidia to accelerate AI development, positioning the U.S. as a leader in artificial intelligence. However, these collaborations raised concerns about monopolistic practices and data privacy breaches. Trump clashed openly with the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell over monetary policies, accusing him of undermining the dollar's value. Amidst rising gold prices, analysts noted the conflict highlighted instability within America's financial system. Trump's decisions, particularly his trade policies, sent shock to the U.S. stock markets. Trump's series of decisions, including the ongoing trade and tariff war, has sent a shock down the stock market, translating to a staggering losses of trillions in market value over the course of 3 months, in addition to huge shocks at Wall Street and a decline in S&P 500 index. Trump declared unwavering support for Israel during the ongoing Gaza war but refrained from committing troops. Instead, he provided financial and military support and proposed post-war reconstruction plans involving Arab states including Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. Egyptian and Jordanian opposition to the U.S. brokered deals that involved forced displacement and U.S. takeover of the Gaza Strip has prevented the Israeli aspirations to the forced removal of the Palestinians from Gaza. Reiterating his interest in acquiring Greenland, Trump reignited discussions about incorporating it as a U.S. territory for security purposes. While dismissed as unrealistic, the proposal underscored his transactional approach to geopolitics. Trump positioned himself as a mediator in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, brokering mineral deals favorable to Washington in the midst of the crisis. However, repetitive open clashes with Ukrainian President Zelensky revealed deep mistrust. In addition, there was a leaning towards the Russian side noted by the European countries, which was dismissed as undemocratic. It is to be noted that Trump repeatedly said he could end the war between Russia and Ukraine in a day, which he hasn't fulfilled yet in 100 days. Negotiations with Iran remain volatile, punctuated by threats and sanctions. Trump pressured Iran to abandon its nuclear ambitions while strengthening ties with Israel. Analysts warn such tactics risk escalating tensions in the Middle East. Donald Trump emphasized the importance of these talks, warning that failure could lead to severe consequences for Iran. He warned, "If the talks aren't successful, I actually think it will be a very bad day for Iran," while stating later on that he's willing to meet personally with the Iranian leaders. Trump criticized NATO members once again for insufficient defense spending, threatening withdrawal unless contributions increased. On another account, disputes arose with Canada over Trump's territorial intentions to take over it and claim it as an American state, while for Mexico, border security led to Trump's clash with it. All incidents reflect Trump's confrontational style of diplomacy. Trump imposed acute tariffs on European imports, citing unfair trade practices. The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, announced retaliatory countermeasures of 26 billion euros, plunging transatlantic relations into turmoil. Economists predicted prolonged disruptions affecting industries ranging from automotive to agriculture. The U.S.-China trade war intensified. The tariffs reached unprecedented levels of Trump's 145% tariffs on U.S. imports and the 125% of Beijing retaliatory tariffs. By day 100, tensions between the two superpowers were amplified. The conflict highlighted Washington's intent to curb China's economic rise. In addition, Trump's administration has recently signaled he is looking to de-escalate the confrontation with China. Trump's first 100 days epitomized disruption in reshaping institutions, challenging norms, and testing alliances. Whether seen as visionary leadership or reckless governance, his decisions will undoubtedly shape America's trajectory for years to come. As polls indicate declining approval ratings and confidence levels, questions linger about whether his strategies can sustain long-term success or imminent downfall. For now, the world watches closely, bracing for what lies ahead in Trump's second term, a period already defined by controversy, ambition, and profound uncertainty.
From reshaping domestic policies to redefining America's role on the global stage, Donald Trump's first 100 days in his second term have been marked by bold executive orders sparking admiration and alarm. Tonight, we will bring you expert analysis as we explore the implications of these controversial decisions. And we're joined now from Washington by Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, the contributing editor at Newsweek. And we're also joined by Mr. Meher Nicholas Firstly, the World Bank former advisor and director of the Washington Forum. Gentlemen, welcome to Qnews. Together we'll dissect the political, economic and international ramifications of Trump's actions and what they mean for America and the world at large. Now, Mr. Russell, how do Trump's mass deportation orders targeting specific groups align with the democratic principles of equality and justice?
Wow. Hey, I don't even know where to begin with that question. I mean, it has been such a political roller coaster here in Washington, watching the second iteration of the Trump administration in this first 100 days. Trying to dissect the implications is something that I don't think anybody globally can get their arms wrapped around. The bottom line here is that whether you're talking about tariffs, that has backfired on Donald Trump. You are looking at international relations, even with our allies. We've seen Carney, Prime Minister-elect Carney in Canada, get elected because of the conflict with Trump. We've seen President Sheinbaum in Mexico push back against Donald Trump. That never would have happened years ago under another administration. We're starting to see what Donald Trump had run his campaign on in 2024. That was, elect me and I'll fix the Ukraine-Russia question in a day. That hasn't happened in 100 days. He said that he would fix the problem in Gaza. That hasn't happened. And then on top of that, he brings up Greenland. He's alienated NATO. He's in a trade war that is affecting the economy. There are so many things to unwrap here. Just the social injustice or the economic injustice or the foreign policy injustice is just so far gone. We're still trying to dissect.
We will be talking about all of these topics and aspects throughout the episode, but what about the deportation specific groups? I mean, it really does go against the principles of democracy.
I mean, the immigration question has been a problem with the Trump administration, and here's why. And it has to deal with an economic aspect. The reality is that our economy here in the United States is largely based on a migrant workforce. Americans don't want to work in the orange groves of Florida or the tomato farms of California, picking tomatoes outdoors. The American workforce has become too entitled and too spoiled to do that work. We've required agricultural workforces to do that work. They happily do that. They get paid at a wage that would make many Americans uncomfortable. But the reality is that the American consumer loves paying, $1 for a tomato versus $15 for a tomato if we don't have that migrant workforce. So Donald Trump is basically reducing a workforce that keeps our economy going. That doesn't even mention, that's just the agriculture. We don't even talk about the service industry jobs that a migrant workforce has, that you start driving up the costs of lodging if you want to take your family on vacation. You want to start looking at how the cost of taking your family out to dinner, because you can't get a workforce that is going to support those jobs. It's going to make it unbearable on the wallet, and it's going to, and where it's going to hit Donald Trump, it's going to hit the people that put him into office the hardest. That's the great thing about the immigration question, that Donald Trump isn't doing it. He's created this massive red herring in immigration and is listening to people that have never enforced immigration law. I enforced immigration law for 12 years of my early life, and I can tell you it's not that simple.
Mr. Firstly, now from the domestic state of the American economy to the global one now, how will Trump's suspension of US aid funding impact the global development goals and the fragile economies worldwide?
Great question. First, a very short disclaimer. So everything I say today is a reflection of my own personal perspective on the issues. And, I'm kind of a centrist. I'm not in any way a supporter of President Trump. However, I'm going to try to defend his thinking, maybe not the implementation of his policy concept, but I'm going to try to defend his thinking using an approach called realism. And so I would think that Trump's policies are rooted in that school of thought, realism, pragmatism, economic nationalism. So he doesn't like the second President Roosevelt, but he loves the first one, Theodore Roosevelt. So the ideas of Trump have always been there in America, center-right, nationalist ideas, and they found their expression at the turn of the century in 1901, 1902, with Theodore Roosevelt. They're called bull moose. So Trump is a bull moose political thinker. Back to your question, US aid. So clearly, the worldview of Trump is nationalist, and you could say populist nationalist. America first is a clear motto. So he and his entourage, they believe that money spent within USAID is money misspent. That's what they argue. And they also believe, and here the critique is rational, it's not excessive. They believe that all of the money, that billions, like tens of billions every year, a lot of money which went into USAID was diverted. So at the end, $1 given to USAID in Washington, D.C., if you went to Zimbabwe, Botswana, Honduras, out of $1, only 20 cents or 30 cents at best would truly be used to help poor farmers or underprivileged women in Sudan and Nicaragua, and 70 or 65 cents for every dollar was wasted. Wasted on what? On a very high salary for USAID bureaucrats, wasted and diverted on things which has nothing to do with aid, aiding the poor to develop, right? So USAID in many countries, they organized, cultural happenings, they stage theater plays. That has nothing to do with aiding poor people in the third world. And also, and Trump is right, part of the money spent on USAID was actually controlled by the CIA and by the State Department, and it was used for intelligence and lobbying purpose in foreign countries. I'm not against intelligence work and lobbying in foreign countries, but it should not be labeled as aiding poor workers or farmers or cotton pickers.
So you don't think it will have a serious effect on the developing economies worldwide?
It will have, no. So it will. So all that critique, being said, and I'm only saying this to be fair to President Trump, it will have a negative impact. But because if you say that a third or 40% of that USAID is not wasted, it means that it is useful. And so there are programs, and I'm thinking, for example, of water, sanitation, and vaccination. So there are crucial programs in the least developed countries, LDC, and they badly need clean water, sanitation, vaccines, and medication for their children. Here, yes, it is a problem, and cutting the aid abruptly is not good. So I'm trying to be balanced once again.
Mr. Russell, now, is Trump's media crackdown a legitimate fight against misinformation or an unprecedented threat that would really try press, a threat to the press freedom and journalism in general?
I mean, you could see this coming from a mile away. Donald Trump wants to control the narrative. That's how he's always been, whether it's been in his businesses, administration. Donald Trump, for somebody that says that he is, a man of the rule of law and a man of, the Constitution, and he reads and believes in the Constitution, obviously doesn't understand the First Amendment of the Constitution. He has done everything to suppress freedom of free media, free press. He's actually got his press secretary, Caroline Levitt, coming out and just calling childish names to certain reporters in certain media outlets because they don't kiss his rear end. And as a result, Donald Trump is not supporting free press. He's actually restricted the freedom of the media and to allow them, their job is to question and report on things that are in the best interest. That is why they are referred to here in the United States as the fourth estate. So Donald Trump doesn't want the fourth estate because he can't control them unless you're talking about OAN, Newsmax, or maybe even to an extent Fox News, but even that's starting to reduce a little bit. It's not good. It does not support our democratic values. And it basically, this shows Donald Trump is about Donald Trump. It's not America first when it comes to media and free press.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Furley, what are the broader implications of Trump's tariffs on European imports for transatlantic trade relations?
I think it's early days. And if I can make a quick comment about the media, so objectively, Trump clearly, may not be the ideal president, but objectively, if you look at American media in a cold manner, and I read the press every morning, and I read more than 20 American newspapers every morning online, 80 or 90% of American journalists are hostile to the Trump White House. So saying that he controlled the narrative is a little bit excessive, but anyway, to answer your question, we live in an infotainment age, and here Trump is not the cause. Trump is the symptom. So, Trump is a reflection, a symptom of the fact that we live in that infotainment age where, all networks, not only Fox News, have transformed, what used to be intellectual dialogue on TV by a reality show, and that's really sad. And that includes the way experts analyze trade with Europe or trade with Canada. It's always, assessed like a TV show. What I'm coming at is trade is a long-term thing. Mm-hmm. Economics and finance are very long-term things that should be judged by journalists and experts over 1 year or 5 years or 10 years. And here we're hearing people after a week on Fox News saying, bravo, Trump won. And we're hearing people on NBC, CNN, and the New York Times saying, oh, it's horrible. Trump destroyed our commercial relationship with Germany and France. So these short-term comments are not smart. Also, the White House, to be honest, the White House itself has not communicated well at all. So here I would say that Trump, he may want to control the narrative, but honestly, he does not control the narrative, and it's partly his fault, partly because of the hostility of most US media, but the communication coming from the White House has been very clumsy and contradictory. So one day, the Treasury says something, Scott Bessent, the next day, the Federal Reserve Board says something. Of that trade realignment seems a bit disorganized, and this is how Europeans and Canadians see him.
Well, it's not just the European and Canadians, also everybody is anticipating the escalating tensions in the US and China trade relations that would also hinder the global supply chains and technological progress. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, the contributing editor at Newsweek, and Mr. Meher Nicholas Firstly, the World Bank former advisor and director of the Washington Forum. Thank you both, gentlemen, for your special insights and this valuable discussion. Now, having explored these seismic shifts in policy and global dynamics, we pause for a bit, but the conversation is far from over. Stay tuned as we return with deeper insights into Trump's economic maneuvers, security strategies, and their far-reaching implications. We have more analysis awaiting, so don't go away. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Think Tank. We will continue our deep dive into the implications of Donald Trump's first 100 years in his second term. And we're joined now from New York by Mr. Peter Tanis, the economic expert and chairman of Links Investment Advisory. Thank you very much, Mr. Tanis, for joining us. Now, how have Trump's protectionist measures, including tariffs, destabilized Wall Street and investor confidence?
Hello, Hani. It's a pleasure to be with you again. That is a question that would require a very long answer, but it's pretty obvious how the tariffs are destabilizing because they're going to add to inflation. And the on-again, off-again aspect of these tariffs that Trump has imposed has added to the economic chaos. Today, this morning, as we speak, Trump modified the tariffs on automobiles since there were tariffs on top of tariffs. There were tariffs on automobiles imported into the United States. There were also additional tariffs on steel and aluminum imported into the United States. The president is going to Detroit today, so he changed some of these to make his reception more welcome.
Well, what role does gold price inflation also play in reflecting the uncertainties triggered by Trump's monetary policies?
You're talking about the increase in the price of gold?
Yes.
Yeah, gold, remember, and I enjoy pointing this out. Gold is the oldest store of value in history. Gold is mentioned in the Bible. Gold is mentioned in the Quran. Gold is mentioned in thousands of years even before that. And IBM and Alphabet and Tesla are not mentioned in the Bible. So the point is, gold has historically been the area where people go to when they're concerned about value, inflation specifically. And of course, the two largest countries in the world, China and India, you can look to the fact that gold, which set new records recently, will continue to be a subject of purchase as long as the uncertainty remains.
Mr. Tanis, the S&P 500's decline under Trump's presidency, how might it influence the corporate investment strategies abroad?
Yeah, well, it doesn't. The fact of the decline in the price is not necessarily a factor in making corporate decisions. Stock prices have gone down a bit, maybe 10% overall. Corporations are much more interested in the tariff aspect of the price of stock, because if the tariff situation normalizes, the price of the stock will take care of itself. So that is not, the price of the stock is not the biggest concern today in making corporate decisions. The have in deciding what to do is, how do you decide where to put a plant if tariffs are on and then a month later they're off, or 2 weeks later they're changed? You can't make decisions like that. So we need of economic stability before that, and this is why there is wide talk of the possibility of a recession.
So now, the trade and economic tensions between the US and China have been highlighted. How critical is resolving the conductor disputes in shaping the trajectory of the US-China economic decoupling?
Yeah, it's exceedingly important. And the trade with China is the single most important tariff issue on the table today, because China is one of our largest trading partners. We import $500 billion worth of goods from China, and it is very important that this be corrected. The president has already walked back his comments about China. He even admitted that the tariffs were too high. That's a good first step, but the next step is going to be to get the tariffs down, because if there is one single issue that is going to affect our going into a recession or not, it's probably the tariff situation with China. We need good news on negotiations with China on taking them off.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Peter Tannis, the economic expert and chairman of Links Investment Advisory. Thank you very much, sir. This has been a valuable discussion. It's Trump's first 100 days that have reshaped America's trajectory, sparking both opportunity and uncertainty. As the world watches, one question remains: will his bold moves redefine leadership or deepen divisions? That brings us to the end of this episode of Think Tank, which always unveils the complexities of our changing world. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for watching.